Hey there. Welcome to Champion Your Life with me, Leighanne Champion. It's great to be here with you all again, working towards living our best lives together. I wanted to start today by sharing about what I do as a transformational certified life coach, because you might be wondering what life coaching is, what a life coach actually does when you work with them, and what is the difference between a therapist and a life coach? A therapist is incredibly helpful in navigating much of your past, perhaps things that you went through in childhood that are still affecting you to this day. In those cases, a therapist will help you to unpack, if you will, your past and process it all the way through so that you can put it in its proper place and move forward. Conversely, where a life coach comes in is that they meet you where you are currently and help you to move forward from where you are at this very moment. A life coach works on your mindset, as so many of our problems are self-created. We also help with establishing self-care routines. We work on your very most important relationships. We work on developing more self-love, as many of us are way too hard on ourselves. We help people with time management and increased productivity. We love nothing more than helping people set goals. But having a life coach in today's world is a real game changer, in that we have someone neutral to process our lives with and to get excited about our lives with. Life coaches are unbelievable cheerleaders. Life coaches are also advocates and guides for forward movement in your life. I really wanted you to understand the difference between the two as you move forward with these episodes. And with that, I now want to introduce a concept that I believe is a precursor to understanding your thought life. And this nugget of wisdom is called the 50-50 of life. And I learned this when I was studying in the life coach school from my instructor, Brooke Castillo. So many of you are probably familiar with this idea through the context of yin and yang, the idea that we need both in order for either to exist. But the 50-50 is just another way of describing a similar polarity. Most people are raised to believe that the goal of life is to be happy all the time. And we are fed this daily by social media, advertisers, influencers, and even in our families. However, the reality is you will experience a mix of both positive and negative emotions throughout your whole life. Now, I learned this concept prior to the pandemic, thankfully, as it really has now proven for me to be so true. And I just want you to open up and hear me explain this. At first, this may sound to you to be a little simplistic, but I promise you there is more to it. This concept of the 50-50 makes us go a little bit deeper inwards and can help us to see the world differently on a day-to-day basis. So stay with me here. What I want to explain is that approximately 50% of the time, simply because we're human beings, we are going to experience difficult and uncomfortable times in our lives. And with those times come difficult and uncomfortable emotions such as anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, fear, just to name a few. And the other 50% of the time will be happier and more excited about life and feeling more comfortable emotions such as excitement and creativity and determination, joy, confidence, peace. So you might be thinking to yourself right now, yeah, Leighanne, I know that. What's so life-changing about that? But here is where I want to challenge you. The 50-50 concept is one of those things that we think we know intellectually, but really don't fully accept in real time, especially when we're going through difficulties or trying times. We as humans are often appalled at what's happening around us and immediately respond and react with indignation. Like a classic thought might be, what? Why is this happening to me? It's funny, learning this particular lesson of the 50-50 was a game changer for me. And I'm convinced that we all learn this for different reasons in different seasons because, well, we're all wired so uniquely. But for me personally, I realized that I'd spent so much of my life just trying to feel good all the time, and then assumed that somehow I was doing it all wrong when I was not happy all the time. And I would quietly ask myself, well, what's happening here? What am I doing wrong? Can any of you relate to that? I was really, really resistant to any kind of negative emotion. So when I learned this concept, I was like, wow. I felt as though someone was finally giving me permission or the green light, if you will, to feel all my feelings, all my emotions, and all my thoughts, good and bad. And in the past, I was definitely trying to run away from the difficult parts of life, the difficult parts of the 50-50, because problems and challenges and difficulties are just this natural part of the human experience, but I hadn't learned that yet. Let me give you some examples of the 50-50. For example, in our marriages, right? And close relationships, there's that honeymoon phase, right? Everything's wonderful, fantastic, romantic. And then through the years, there's just so much of life that we go through together, so much joy on one hand and so much pain. Truly the 50-50. It's a roller coaster of life. And I believe that marriage really is such a beautiful example of the 50-50 because no one is exempt from the ups and downs of life. Now, they may not be admitting it, but it's there. Another example would be becoming a parent, right? The joy of welcoming a child into the world, and then it eventually dawns on you all that entails. Oh my gosh, am I ever gonna sleep again? Will I ever experience freedom again? Will I ever not worry? Why isn't this child walking yet? All the things. And then there's raising children and launching them into the world. I mean, you have them for all these years, right? And you raise them and you just give them so much love. And then they have the audacity to leave home. That's a total 50-50 experience too, isn't it? Interestingly enough, though, most of us, when we imagine our futures, we often expect them to be filled with only comfortable emotions. Only 100% of the time. But the human experience, well, it's 50-50. And I believe that is by design. I believe that it's there to provide contrast for us. And we don't need to always strive for positive emotions. In fact, we really don't always want to feel good. It's normal to have negative emotions. And in fact, sometimes we actually need to really choose them. For example, do you really want to feel happy when someone you love dies? Most likely you would want to experience the emotion of grief as it comes up. And grief, it can take a very long time to process because it validates, right, and honors a loving relationship, or even perhaps a difficult one, right? There was a young man in our town who died tragically in a hockey game, and it was all over the news. I think it was about a year and a half ago. Unbelievable circumstance, just an all around tragic event. And I didn't know this young man, but I chose to be really sad about this. I chose to cry for him and his parents and the loss of his life, which obviously, right, it was way, way, way too soon. And I'm quite sure that many of you listening have experienced something very similar. I was thinking also that this young man's life has helped people to grieve so many other things that they are going through that are unexplainable right now. He unknowingly opened up the door to allow tears for so many people across our nation. And this young man's passing is just one of the most difficult parts of the 50-50 of life. But those difficult parts can be our greatest teachers. And again, I personally think that is how it's supposed to be. That is how the world was designed. I believe our life on earth is just one big classroom designed for us by God. And we all have our own unique challenges to go through and to learn from. Clients often ask me, does the 50-50 concept cause humans to want reality to be different than it actually is? I go, yeah, that's it. And therein lies the struggle. You know, there's this beautiful Byron Katie quote that says this all so beautifully. She wrote, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. I think it really helps to not see the difficult part of life or the 50-50 as a problem. More like it just is. When we can embrace this concept that life is both good and bad, beautiful and hard, it no longer seems so dire. It just is. It somehow levels the playing field of life. Many of my clients will argue with me about the other side of this concept, and they'll say, well, Leighanne, you know, I really don't like this. Isn't it more like 80-20 good? Those are my optimists. And others will argue, wait, it's 80-20 bad. I mean, Leighanne, come on. Haven't you watched the news lately? Seriously, are you out of touch? Look at the world. And of course, only God knows the truth of the 50-50 on a macro level. This is only an approximation, a framework to look at life through a new lens. But I firmly believe that when we are able to accept this 50-50 concept of life, we become empowered. We really aren't as shocked by the difficult times, and we're even more grateful for the times that are good. I want you to truly think for a second about what I'm going to say. Really take this one in. Can you be at peace and content knowing that you won't be peaceful and content 100% of the time? Isn't that a wild thing to think about? But I believe it's almost like when you accept the negativity, you can become at peace with it. There's real freedom in the 50-50, in this understanding of it. So take a sticky note and put it on your bathroom mirror or on your computer and just write 50-50 as a private reminder for you. Embrace it. Live by it. You've been listening to Champion Your Life. What a time to be alive. I look forward to talking to you next time.